next speaker, who is joining us all the way from the United States. His name is Shriman Mukunda Prabhu, and he has quite a beautiful and very sweet history of association and seva. He originally, and please correct me if I get any of this wrong, Prabhu, but my understanding is that he originally met Srila Prabhupada's devotees in Los Angeles way back. He was a pioneer of preaching Hare Krishna philosophy in Africa. He was also the strategist who planned, orchestrated, facilitated, if you like, the tremendous preaching of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He met our beloved Srila Gurudeva, I believe in 97, but it could be 96, so please correct me on that if I've got that wrong. And he used to organize Gurudev's trips to Alachua and to Lake Washington. And one of the things he has in common with Srila Gurudeva is he was an ex-policeman. Mukunda Prabhu was ex-policeman, a DC policeman. So Srila Gurudeva was also a policeman, so they had something in common. And I believe that Prabhu is not only expert in martial arts, but has actually created his own form of martial arts. He's an erudite scholar and a professional musician. So quite a combination of beautiful qualities. So Mukunda Prabhu, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing your glorification.
Dandavad Prabhuji. First, let me get rid of all the embarrassment from all that you've said. Gurudeva Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Shandhavevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So actually, I met Srila Gurudeva the very first time. I was on Padayatra, actually, ISKCON Padayatra. And that year, which almost never happened, though it's happening now, but back at that time, Ram Janmabhoomi was always closed because of the conflict between the Muslim community there and the Hindu community. But that year it was open, and the Padayatra went to Ram Janmabhoomi. So when we were returning from there, we stopped in Mathura, and I was traveling with, I think, 2 sannyasis and one other Grahastha devotee. And when we embarked in Mathura, they suggested that we go and see Srila Narayan Maharaj. So I was really, really tired. You know, we had done the Padayatra first of all, and then the train ride back was a little bit intense, and it was Ekadasi. So it was a lot going on. And I asked, well, you know, where is it? Where are we going? And to whom are we going to see? Just, oh, no, you have to come. This is where Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. So it was obviously Keshavji Gaudiya. And so I went. And at that time, myself and Ayendra Prabhu, Ayendra, of course, was a very, very good kirtaniya. And we had known each other for many, many years in New York and had done kirtan together. And he was just, I think, starting the 24-hour kirtan there or something like that. Anyway, we were doing bhajan kirtan every day. And we actually used to get on rickshaws in Braj, and we would ride around and take melodies from different places to use in the 24-hour kirtan. So anyways, when we got to Keshavji Gaudiya Math, Gurudev's room was on the 2nd floor that time. And I remember going up, and Gurudev's door would be open, and there was always people passing by paying obeisances and some people sitting inside, etc. So we were at the room, and I remember sitting at the doorway, and my Sukriti was not very high class, I don't think, because Srila Gurudev was giving Harikatha, especially these 2 sannyasis. They had some questions, everything. And at the same time, I believe it was Seshai Prabhu was doing bhajan, and you could hear it coming up from the temple room. And it was so enchanting. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I had my tape recorder for the bhajan. And I'm sitting in the presence of Srila Gurudev, and Gurudev is giving Harikatha. And I'm so unfortunate that I'm thinking, oh, I wish I was taping this bhajan. So, but Gurudev's extreme mercy is such that even foolish persons, that if you will come in proximity to Sudha Vaishnavas, then their mercy, like it's explained about Radha Kund, Radha Kunda Miha Gokulapate, Premanamrita Plavanat, that Radha Kund is of such a nature, which is why people do bhajan, qualified devotees do bhajan at Radha Kund, is because Radha Kund's mercy is so vast that it overflows its banks. So the heart of pure devotees is also like that their kripa, their mercy, their prem, it overflows their heart and touches the heart of those who are qualified and even those who are unqualified. As Mahaprabhu said, whether you have a patra or you don't have a patra, he didn't consider. He gave everyone mercy. So Srila Gurudev was like that. And then, Prabhuji, as you adequately said, I met Gurudev again in 1996 on his first visit to the US. He came to the East Coast, and during that time, he was traveling with one devotee, Pujapat Nrsimha Maharaj, who's, of course, left his body not so long ago, I don't believe. And I remember prior to that, maybe it was 95, that, because 1992, I had started getting some tapes, and there was a manuscript that was going around of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. And just I had some tapes and other things, and I had started reading and hearing Srila Gurudev's tape lectures. And I remember starting to write Srila Gurudev, and I actually still have the blue aerograms that fold in the one when Gurudev used to write. This is before the email thing. He was writing back on these blue aerograms, and he says, oh, I have no plan at that time to come to America, but if you will come to Braj, you know, please come and be on our parikram, and I will help you in all ways. That was a favorite saying of Gurudev, I will help you in all ways. So long story short, that year before, this particular sannyasi, Pujapat Nrsimha Maharaj, and also Pujapat Tripurari Maharaj, they were in DC, and they were doing some kind of program to raise funds. And myself and Agraya Prabhu, whom was the first person in the DC area to host Gurudev, when they had approached Gurudev, somebody had written to Agraya Prabhu about hosting Gurudev. He went and he asked Pujapat Tripurari Maharaj and Pujapat Nrsimha Maharaj, oh, how much do you know about Srila Narayan Maharaj? He's coming and I want to host him. And so both, of course, they said, oh, yes, 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 you should definitely do. Very high class of Vaishnav, so forth. And I told Agraya Prabhu, I only remember the brief meeting in 1986, but that since that time, not since 86, but you know, probably around 92 or something like that, I had been writing to Gurudev and listening to lectures, and yeah, if he can come and, you know, you host, it would be great. So of course, Gurudev came in 1996, and we met Srila Gurudev. There's so many great stories. I think it was the 96 trip of Gurudev that he came to New Jersey. And at that time, I was working in the police department, as you rightly mentioned. And I remember calling in sick because I was planning to go to New Jersey to see Srila Gurudev. I certainly, after everything was said and done, was not going to allow that opportunity to escape me. So I called in sick, and doesn't matter now, I'm retired, so they can never get that back, doesn't matter. So I took the drive to New Jersey, and Pujapat Padmanabh Maharaj, who was Urukram at that time, and many other devotees, of course, they were there. We were in the house of one devotee who was, you know, I think a Srila Prabhupada disciple, but he had not been very active for some time, but he agreed. He was away for the weekend and agreed that devotees could use his home. It was a beautiful home in New Jersey. So Srila Gurudev came there. And I remember myself and my good wife, we was sitting there, and Urukram Prabhu went around the room and he introduced all the different devotees, and he introduced me, and I reminded Gurudev that I had met him in 1986, and Gurudev, you know, he nodded. But then Gurudev began his Harikatha, and he began his Harikatha by saying, what time is it now? So it was around 10 o'clock at that time, maybe a little after. And so Gurudev then began describing from Ashtakali Lila the particular pastimes related to that time of day. And I remember thinking, my gosh, just in this introductory situation here, Gurudev has started on such a high level Harikatha. And both me and my wife, we were so enthused. My wife is a dentist, and of course, she's retired now, but at that time she had an active practice. And unlike myself, she could not just cancel patients at will and everything. So after Gurudev's Harikatha that day, oh, one other thing that happened during that time, which was pretty amazing. Gurudev was right in the middle of his Harikatha, and apparently a relative of the person who owned the house, an elderly lady, was staying there. And so just randomly, she came out from whatever quarter she was staying in. She had her bathrobe on, and she walked over to a sort of bureau in the house, opened up the door to that bureau, reached in, and pulled out a bottle of alcohol. So everyone, you could feel the kind of tension in the room as to what was going on. Gurudev did not stop speaking Harikatha. He continued speaking Harikatha. And this lady, after pulling out the bottle of alcohol, poured a glass, took a few sips, and sat down. So at this point, the atmosphere is, people are not deferring their attention from Srila Gurudev, but it's obviously palpable in the room that, wow, she's sitting and drinking right in front of Gurudev. So Gurudev just continued speaking Harikatha, and this lady took a few more sips, finished that. She took the bottle and the glass, got up and nodded. She stood and nodded towards Gurudev, almost like in a gesture of obeisances, and continued to walk out. And I thought, this is completely amazing. That Gurudev did not stop. He wasn't disturbed. He didn't even inquire about it afterwards or anything like that. But anyways, after that day, myself and my wife, we drove back because she had to work the next day. And when I reached home, another devotee friend of mine, Sanatan Goswami Prabhu, he was also hearing about Gurudev and everything at that time. And I told him, I just came from New Jersey and Srila Gurudev is there. And we should go back and see him. I'll just call in sick again the next day. So I dropped my wife off and we jumped into his van now. We turned right around and drove back to New Jersey, slept in his van, and then appeared again the next day there to see Srila Gurudev. And on the next day, Gurudev looked and he said, oh, you're still here. Very, very nice. So we listened to Harikatha everything that day, and then Tirtha Pradad and his good wife Shamla and other devotees, they were saying, oh, this is the good time for you to go and take shelter of Gurudev. So we said, yeah, we'll definitely do that. So we went to Srila Gurudev's room. At that time, it was not very difficult to get Gurudev's association. There wasn't so many devotees at that time. So we just went and we went in the room and paid our obeisances. And we, both myself and Sanatan Prabhu, told Gurudev, we want to take shelter fully of you. And Gurudev, he smiled and he said, first you should just be in my association, and don't worry, I will help you in all ways. So there is no need for you to accept initiation or take Diksha or anything. I will help you in all ways. Siksha is just as valuable as Diksha, everything. So Gurudev, I think, was giving us the test. So, you know, our mentality at that time was, if the guru or sadhu says something, you abide by it. You don't push your own will. So we walked out of the room and all the devotees were waiting for us. So we said, well, Gurudev told us he would help us in all ways and there was no need for taking Diksha. So they were all saying, no, you should go back. Gurudev will do it, he'll do it. So we didn't feel comfortable doing it, so we did it. So fast forwarding to that very next year that Srila Gurudev came, and he was hosted by Agraya Prabhu at his home in Maryland, because there would be several visits to DC and Gurudev would stay in Agraria's home when he moved to Virginia as well. And there's some very nice stories in regard to that. But anyway, when he came that next year, 97, he stayed at the home of Agraria. And we also went and we, you know, talked to Gurudev, everything like that. And then it was, no, that year Agraria had moved actually. The first year he was in Maryland, next year he had moved to Virginia. So Gurudev was staying with him in Virginia. And when Srila Gurudev first used to travel, one devotee named Pundarik also used to travel with Gurudev. Brajanath Prabhu, his good wife, Tungavijaya, and Brajanath, Tungavijaya, Pujapad Madhav Maharaj, he was still living at that time, and Pundarik. They were the ones who would travel with Srila Gurudev. And so Pundarik's uncle had met Gurudev in Braj and had asked Gurudev that if he would ever come to the area that he would visit his home, which was in Virginia Beach. So we were having a small everyday Harikatha at Agraria's house. And then Gurudev brought up the idea that we should go to the home of Pundarik's uncle. So Virginia Beach from where we were staying was about a 2 or 3 hour ride. And we told Gurudev, listen, we will all chip in and pay for Pundarik's uncle's family to come up here, and Agraria Prabhu and other devotees can host them in their homes, and that way you wouldn't have to be under the stress of the travel. So Gurudev said, no, 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 I've promised that I would visit his home. And because of that, I must go there. So Gurudev said that myself and Agraria should also come. So I agreed to drive, and Agraria Prabhu rode along Brajanath, Madhav Maharaj, and Gurudev. So we got in the van and we headed out towards Virginia Beach. Along the way, Srila Gurudev had wanted to use the restroom. So this was another one of those amazing stories. So normally I would always see that whenever Gurudev would go anywhere, he would either on the shoulder of Brajanath Prabhu or on the shoulder of Madhav Maharaj, Gurudev would get down and he would put his arm on their shoulder and walk. Everybody's seen this so many times. But in this case, when Gurudev stopped to use the restroom, Madhav Maharaj, when the van door opened, he just jumped out and he ran. He didn't wait for Gurudev, he just ran into the gas station. So Brajanath Prabhu, he also got down and he began to fix some things in the back of the vehicle. So I got down to walk Gurudev in, and that was the very first time Gurudev put his arm on my shoulder, so I was feeling so enlivened and ecstatic. And we walked into the gas station, and I realized then why Pujapad Madhav Maharaj had jumped down and ran. American gas station bathrooms are not sort of ideal. They're not super clean or anything. Like I've been to many places in the world, like in Japan, everything is spotlessly clean, many other places, but America's not one of them. Anyway, Madhav Maharaj ran in, went to the gas station owners, got cleaning materials and cleaned the bathroom before Gurudev went in. So that's the kind of sevak Madhav Maharaj is. He ran in to clean the bathroom first. So Gurudev went in, came back, long story short. So I was feeling very ecstatic. And we continued our drive to Virginia Beach, where Pundarik's uncle lived. During the course of that time, Agraria Prabhu was reading from Venu Geet, and he was quoting the verses of Venu Geet. And Gurudev then began speaking Harikatha based on the verses. So Gurudev's Harikatha was getting so enchanting that I was driving the car, but to make sure I was hearing everything, I was leaning sort of back and in so I could hear every word Gurudev was saying. So at one point during the Harikatha, Gurudev began laughing, and I thought I had missed something. Maybe Gurudev said something and I missed it. And Gurudev said, no, I'm laughing because are you driving with your ear? So he was saying, because my head was turned and I was leaning back, he was thinking I'm not looking at the road, that I'm driving with my ear. So after the laugh, I told Gurudev, no, I'm concentrating. So we arrived at the house of Pundarik's uncle, and another amazing thing took place was that when Gurudev visited Agraria's house on the very first visit, he was still living in Maryland at that time, we had set up, because there were a lot of devotees staying over, so Agraria Prabhu had put up some tents in the yard. And the children, of course, when they saw the tents go up, the kids were like, oh, this is like a camping trip. So they were very happy. So they all went and they slept in the tents overnight. And all the adults were sleeping in the living room and anywhere else they could find a spot. So when Srila Gurudev came out in the morning, he looked out the window and he saw the kids out in the tent. And so Gurudev, you know, he called all the brahmacharis and he says, why the kids are sleeping outside and all of you are sleeping inside? Why is that? And so Gurudev, so everybody was trying to explain to Gurudev, oh, Gurudev, they're having fun. They wanted to sleep outside. So Gurudev didn't say anything, but it's almost like he took a mental note of it. So we arrived at the house of Pundarik's uncle, and we got Gurudev's bag down, everything, and, you know, began bringing everything in. So Gurudev, you know, they were showing Gurudev where he was going to be staying. And it was a small house. It wasn't a large house. So they took Gurudev to their own room. And that was the largest room in the house. It had the most facilities. So they took Gurudev there. But before Gurudev accepted, he asked, well, where are you staying? So they both replied, oh, we'll find some, Gurudev, we'll be okay. No problem, you can stay here. So Gurudev said, no, I've been sannyasi more than 60 years. I can sleep in the van. My body is a little older, so I can sleep on the seat in the van. Naveen Prabhu, mean Madhvaraj, he can sleep outside with me in the garage, and the Brajanath Prabhu Mukunda Agrai, you could sleep in the living room anywhere on the floor is okay. And Gurudev was determined to sleep in the van until the family actually begged him to take the room, and then Gurudev forced them to show him where they were staying so he would be satisfied that they were not being put out by his presence. So it was during that trip also that I told to Pujapad Madha Maharaj or Naveen at that time that I'm going to request initiation again from Gurudev. And so I said, oh, Gurudev's in the room, just go. So I went in the room and Gurudev was laying down, and I came to the doorway and I told Srila Gurudev, oh, Gurudev, last year I mentioned that I want to take shelter of you. And Gurudev says, first you should see that I am a pure devotee and then make your decision. And Gurudev, I said, since 1992, I've been hearing, and my conviction has been there, you know, from that time. Gurudev said, okay, tomorrow. So he called Madha Maharaj into the room and said, okay, get Havan Samagri, get this, get that, all the preparations for doing the yajna, because we would do it at Agraya's house the next day. And then Gurudev called me over to the bed, and Gurudev was patting my head, and he says, everything will be all right. Your life will be okay. Your life will be successful. So I was like in so much bliss. So I think my time may be getting short, and I don't want to infringe on others' time. So I'll tell one other pretty amazing story with Srila Gurudev. As Prabhuji mentioned, one of the services that we began to do for Srila Gurudev was to put on festivals. And it wasn't myself alone. I would always be in the association of many other devotees helping. But I remember this one year in DC, we were going to arrange the first big festival. I think it was 2001. That was going to be the first big festival. We had festivals every year, but they were smaller. The gathering of devotees at that time in the Sangha was just not that huge. But this was going to be the first kind of major festival. So we had rented a old CIA training camp. It's pretty far out. And it had all of these cabins and kind of rustic accommodations. And it was in a place called Prince William Park. And this was before the upstate Washington Lake Festival. This is before that. So anyway, we were making all of our plans and engagements, how we were going to do things, what would be set up, buying the boat, all the plans that go into making a festival. So once 4 devotees, myself, Sanatan Prabhu, one other devotee, and Pujapat Shanta Maharaj, who was at that time Madhav Prabhu, myself, Sanatan, and Madhav Prabhu, we all took initiation from Gurudev on the same day in 1997. So we were sitting in the car planning, and we got a call. Gurudev was in Alachua at that time, where I live now. He called, not Gurudev called, but Pujapad, what was his sannyas name at that time? He was formerly Drishtajumna Prabhu, Bhakti Sar Maharaj. He called us from Alachua, and he said, listen, Prabhu, we had amazing realization that Gurudev is going to do amazing preaching if he goes to New Vrindavan community. And we've already made arrangements and everything. So I said, but Prabhu, we've already rented this place and we have invitations for many, many people to come. So it might be a little bit late to cancel right now. So he said, yes, but we want to serve Gurudev's desire. And this is something that Gurudev would want. This is a rare opportunity. So we acquiesced and said, well, okay, if Gurudev wants that to happen, then we'll try to work it out. We said, we don't really know what we're going to do about the plans we've made. He said, well, just put up notices that people should come to New Vrindavan. That was kind of a ridiculous idea, but anyway, we were a little disheartened, to say the least. So maybe while we're sitting in the car and we're, all consoling each other and making plans, maybe we'll have to go to New Vrindavan, Brajanath Prabhu calls. And Brajanath Prabhu says, Mukunda. So I said, yes. He said, Gurudev wants to speak to you. So I said, okay. So then Gurudev gets on the phone and he asked me, Mukunda, you don't want me to come to DC? So I said, no, Srila Gurudev. I was told that you wanted to go to New Vrindavan, that the preaching opportunity may be greater. He says, and then I asked, well, Srila Gurudev, even if you will come for 1 or 2 days here, I'll be happy. He says, why? You wanted me to come for 7 days. You don't want me to come? So now at this point, I'm a huge guy, but I'm about to break out in tears. I'm saying, Gurudev, no, I want you to come certainly. He says, yes, I will come for 7 days. No one controls me. So then I got the gist of what was going on in the backdrop, that they were trying to make a coup, so to speak, and just make some other program, and Gurudev wasn't having it. So of course we were like separation and meeting. So something that we all became super elated now that Gurudev was coming. So my last story, when Srila Gurudev did come to that festival, a very amazing thing happened as well. One morning, after I made the morning announcements and everything, Gurudev had called me. No, it was an evening program and I had made all the announcements and everything. Gurudev called me and he said, listen, I want you to come tomorrow to where I'm staying and just come by yourself. I want you to take me to the White House. So I thought, there's so many times Gurudev visited DC and we were much closer to the White House and all these things. We were much closer. But Gurudev, now we're about 45 minutes, an hour away, and with traffic, that's going to be a little intense. I said, okay, Gurudev. I said, if you want to go to the White House, though, I have to bring someone with me because I will not be able to park there and leave the van. So he says, okay, you can bring one person. So I told Sanatan Prabhu to come with me. So the next morning, myself, Gurudev, Brajanath Prabhu, and Madhav Maharaj, and Sanatan, we got into the van and we drove to DC. So on the way into DC proper, we passed the Pentagon. And Gurudev asked me, what is that? So I told Gurudev, oh, Gurudev, this is the military wing of our government. They make all their plans here for this and that, and it's this and that. And Gurudev did his Ashirvad. Ashirvad means like to hold your hand up and give a blessing. And then we came to the White House. So not realizing also, I'm still in full tilak, and I've got on yogi pants, but I'm in tilak and everything. But, I had my credentials with me and everything. So I jumped down out of the van. I go to a uniformed Secret Service agent, and this never happens. Never. I showed him my credentials, and he said, okay, what can I do for you? And I was saying, listen, I have a very special visitor. He's come all the way from India. He's elderly. So we wanted him to be able to see, the White House somehow, and I don't know how to tour. And he said, listen, you can't park your van here, but you can allow him to get down here and I'll walk him in the gate. And I'm like shocked at this point because this never happens, right? And thinking about it now, of course, this is prior to 9/11, but never happens that they'll acquiesce to allow these kind of things to go on. So I'm like super excited now. And I'm thinking everything I've ever done in law enforcement has become fruitful now that I've been able to arrange something for Gurudev that he wanted. So I run back to the van. I tell Sanatan to drive, park the van at a legal parking space, and that, Brajanath and Madhamar should get down and they'll come with us and, Sanatan can catch up to us. So when I get back in the van, Gurudev says, okay, I'm good. We should go now. So I said, oh, Gurudev, no, I've arranged. You'll be able to go inside the gate. They won't let you in the building, but you can go in the gate. And no, it's okay. We should go back now. We'll go back and be in time for Hari Katha. So now I was really confused. So I told the a uniformed Secret Service agent that, no, a uniformed Secret Service guy that, no, okay, he's changed his mind. And so, we got back in the van. So then I started driving, and as I was driving to different places, I started pointing out different monuments and things. And Guru said, no, I don't need to see all. Just let's go back straight now. So I was so bewildered why this was such a thing for Srila Gurudeva to do. As many times as we had been in DC before, why it was important now for him to go to the White House and all these things. So I didn't ask him about it or anything like that, but that was in May, June. Of course, in September of that year is when 9/11 had happened. And thinking back on it, though the Twin Towers in New York obviously were hit, and there's a story about that with Pujapat Srila Bhakti-Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj. I'm not telling that story, maybe another time. But Srila Gurudeva, the two places that he passed and made notice of was the Pentagon, and he went to the White House. Neither one of those places suffered really severe damage. The White House, of course, nothing at all. And the Pentagon, it was struck, but it was struck in a new section that was being built. So the casualty was very minimal and the damage was very minimal. And I thought, listen, this could, you could chalk it up as coincidental, but Gurudev's request to go there, to see something like that, to offer Ashirvad to this place, what kind of insight or what kind of heartfelt compassion did Gurudev have that he went to these two places right out of the clear blue? As many times as we have been in DC, he went to these two places and offered Ashirvad there, offered blessings there, and then immediately returned for us to do Hari Katha. So there were many, many things like this that I saw in the association of Srila Gurudev, and many, many other wonderful things. Of course, the main thing with Srila Gurudev was not so much these external things, but was the Antara Mandir that Gurudev built in everyone's heart. Even after Shamarani Didi had painted the Seva Kunj painting, I remember hearing Gurudev tell one devotee,
need to wrap up, Prabhu.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up just now. He was saying, this is not for your archon, but this is for the Antara Mandir. It is for the heart Mandir, and you should worship there. So, Jai Srila Gurudev, Jai Ki Jai. Vancha Kalpa Turubhyascha, Vipashinnavevacha, Patitanam Pavanyo, Vaishnavevi Onamo Namaha. And thank both of you very much for inviting me.
Prabhu, the Agraya, is that Atul Krishna?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. That was just like, I couldn't stop you. It was so beautiful hearing all that katha. And I can tell you that I don't think you were not telling the truth when you said you were calling in sick. You were just sick with desire. You were not sick physically. So I think you were telling the truth. You didn't realize it. It reminded me something I was reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita this morning about how we can only get back to Godhead with Sadhu Sangha and with Harinam. And
yes.
You were saying just such simple stories like how just having having Gurudev's hand on you when he needed to go into the service center was electrifying you. And all those stories really, I know I was on the tour with you in my heart, in my mind, as you were telling those stories. And you really teased us with the Sripad Puri Vaibhav Maharaj story about the Twin Towers. You're right, we don't have time right now, but I want to hear that. I think I've heard that story before, but I've forgotten it, and I really want to hear that story. So thank you so much, Prabhu. I hope you can speak again. We've got another 62 of these to go. So